Okay, we are going to learn how to multiply and divide integers and also add and subtract integers. To begin multiplying and dividing integers, what you need to know: a negative times a negative is a positive. It works the same way with dividing. So if I have two negatives, it will be a positive answer. In fact, if I have four negatives, so if I had a negative times another negative times another negative times another negative, well, this negative times a negative is a positive. This negative times a negative is a positive. My final answer will be positive. Okay, so let's try to do a few problems. Now remember, we're just multiplying. 3 times 5 is still 15. But a negative times a negative is a positive. There are two negatives here. Now, do you see how these parentheses are side by side? I do know that I am multiplying. I am not adding and subtracting. 2 times 3, well, that's still 6, but there's only one negative sign here, so my answer will be a negative 6. 2 times 5 is 10, times 3, 30, times 2 is 60. Is that a positive 60 or a negative 60? Well, let's look at our negative signs. I have a negative times a negative, that's a positive, times another negative, my answer will be negative. Let's count the negatives. I have 3 negatives here. 3 is an odd number. I can't pair them all up. I will have an extra negative. And once again, be sure to look between these. These parentheses are all side by side. That's how I know I am multiplying and not adding and subtracting. 3 times 2 times 4. So 3 times 2 is 6, times 4 is 24. The question is, will that be positive or negative? Well, I have one negative here. One's an odd number. I can't pair it up. My answer is a negative 24. Now, the same thing will work when I am dividing. If I had negative 8 divided by negative 4, well, 8 divided by 4 is 2, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. You see, I had a pair of negatives here. A negative and a negative is a positive. Now, this is when you are multiplying and dividing. If I had 15 divided by a negative 3, well, 15 divided by 3 is just 5. But there's one negative there, so it will be a negative 5. I can't pair it up. So in multiplying and dividing, if you have a negative times a negative or a negative divided by a negative, your answer will be a positive. We do not care which one's a larger number or which one's a smaller number. If you have a negative times a negative, your answer is a positive. Now let's talk about adding and subtracting. Okay, let's start with a few simple problems. If I had 2 plus 3, I know, of course you know that this is a positive 5. But let's think about it. If I have a positive 2, and then I have a positive 3, then you should see that I do have 5 positives. Look in front of the 2. You don't see anything there. So if nothing's there, we do know that it is a positive. Look in front of the 3. It is a positive. So a positive 2 and a positive 3 is a positive 5. I know that you know what 5 minus 2 is. 5 minus 2 is 3. But let's think of it as a positive 5. Look in front of the 5. It is positive. So if you have 5 positives, and then look in front of the 2, it is negative. A minus is the same thing as a negative. So I have 2 negatives. A positive and a negative cancel each other out. So that positive and negative, they're gone. They battle. They're out of there. This positive and a negative, they're battle. They are out of there. So what do I have left? It looks like I just have 3 positives left, and that's what I got. So if I have positives and I have negatives, they're going to battle. And who wins the battle? Well, whatever you have the most of. In this case, the positives one. Let's say I have negative 3 plus 1. What does that equal? Well, look in front of the 3. It is a negative. So I have 3 negatives. Look in front of the 1. It is a positive. So if I have 3 negatives and I have 1 positive, I have negatives and positives. They are going to battle. And a negative and a positive just cancels each other out. So those are gone. And what's left over? It is 2 negatives. So if I have positives and negatives, they're going to battle. That's why I subtract. That's how I got 2. Who won the battle? Whichever I had the most of. In this case, negatives. Okay, let's try another one. Let's say I have a negative 2 minus 3. Now remember, a minus is the same thing as a negative. If I have 2 negatives, and then I have 3 negatives, a minus is a negative. So 1, 2, 3. So I had 2 negatives, I had 3 negatives. Woo! We got just lots more negatives. We are going to party. And does anything cancel out? No, I have all negatives. So I end up having 5 negatives. That would be negative 5. I could have written this problem another way. I could have written negative 2 plus a negative 3. And if I written it this way, just look in front of it. That is a negative 2. I do see the plus, and that is a negative 3. But plus a negative is still a negative. I will have lots of negatives. Nothing will cancel out, and that's how I got negative 5. Okay, so let's learn some rules for this. So in adding and subtracting integers, if I have the same sign, I have to add them up, and I keep that sign. So if I have positives and more positives, I add them all up, I get lots more positives. Or if I have negatives and negatives, I add them up and I get lots more negatives. So same sign, add, and keep the sign. What do? If they have the same sign, you add and keep the sign. One more time now. If they have the same sign, what do? Add and keep that sign. If they have opposite signs, so if I have some negatives and some positives, I will subtract because they battle. I have positives, I have negatives. I will subtract, and who wins the battle? Whatever I have the most of. So opposite signs, subtract, and keep the sign of the largest number. If they have opposite signs, what do? Subtract and keep the sign of the largest number. One more time now. If they have opposite signs, I will subtract and keep the sign of the largest number. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. If I had 3 minus a minus 5, whenever you have minus a negative, those are 2 negatives side by side. It's as if I'm multiplying this negative times a negative. That will be a positive. A negative times a negative becomes a positive. When you see 2 negatives side by side, before you do anything, rewrite that problem. That problem is actually 3 plus 5 because I had a negative in front of a negative, a minus a negative. That is a positive. And now I use my rules. Look in front of the 3, it's a positive. Look in front of the 5, it's a positive. Well, if I have positives and more positives, I'm going to add them up and get even more positives. Your answer is a positive 8. Okay, let's try to do a few. Now remember, I do see a parenthesis here, but this is not multiplying. It's not right beside that 3. So let's go. We are adding and subtracting these. Look in front of the 3. What kind of number is a 3? It's a negative. Now I have this plus a negative 5. So what kind of number is a 5? It's a negative. Well, if I have a negative here and negative here, same sign, you add and keep the sign. Your answer will be negative 8. Now look at this problem. Negative 3 minus 5. What kind of number is a 3? It's a negative. Now what kind of number is a 5? It's a negative. Remember, a minus is just a negative. Now I can't rewrite that as a positive because those negatives are not side by side. But I have a negative 3, I have a negative 5, same sign, add and keep the sign. This is the same problem we had right here. Some people like to write plus a negative. Some people know it's the same thing, it's just a minus. The bottom line is there is just one negative in front of this 5 in both cases. Now look here, this is a different problem. Before I do anything, do you see that I have this two negatives side by side? And I know a negative times a negative is a positive. Rewrite this problem. So I will have -3, and that would be plus 5. And now carry on with your problem. What kind of number is a 3? It's a negative. What kind of number is a 5? It's a positive. Uh-oh, I'm going to have negatives and positives. They're going to battle. That means you're going to subtract. Who wins this battle? The positives or the negatives? Well, I have more 5s. Remember, opposite sign, subtract, and keep the sign of the largest number. Keep going. -2 plus 8. What kind of number is a 2? Look in front of it. It's negative. What kind of number is 8? It's positive. Opposite sign, subtract, and keep the sign of the largest number. Now this 7 minus 3. I know you've been doing that since first grade. 7 minus 3 is 4. But is that the same answer we would have gotten if we used our rules for integers? What kind of number is a 7? It's positive. What kind of number is 3? Remember, a minus is the same thing as a negative. So if I have a positive 7 and a -3, opposite signs, you would subtract. We did. And keep the sign of the largest number, which we did. You see, we still get the same answers. 2 minus 5. What kind of number is a 2? Great, it's positive. What kind of number is a 5? That's a minus, which is the same thing as a negative, so it's a negative. Opposite sign, subtract, and keep the sign of the largest number. Positive 2, a -5. We're going to have a battle here. They're going to subtract. And who's going to win this battle? The negatives. Last problem. Before you do anything, do you see this minus and negative side by side? You have to rewrite that problem. That will be 2 plus 3. And now continue with your rules. I have a positive 2 and a positive 3. Woo, I have positives and more positives, so we're going to get even more positives. We will add and keep the sign. Good luck on your adding and subtracting integers. And don't forget, in multiplying and dividing integers, a negative times a negative is a positive.